As we continue our Unit 2, Chapter 4, talk on demand, we've talked about demand, law of demand. We have talked about what a demand curve would look like, and there is an example of that here. It's a downward sloping curve with an inverse relationship between price and quantity. Higher the price, the less the quantity demanded. Lower price, the higher the quantity demanded. And we ask the question, if this curve represents the market for a particular product, whether it be a piece of pizza or a can of pop or something like that, and if you look at all the individuals who are willing, able, and have the desire to buy that product, this curve would represent what that would look like, all the prices people would pay for this particular product in a given market. Does that always stay the same? Is that the same look every single time? Would there be a situation where you have someone at this point on the curve and they would end up moving over to, say, this point in the curve? Or someone would start at this beginning point, call it point A, and maybe they'd move down here to point B. And there are a couple of those. There's a couple that would move you up and down the curve, and there's a couple of situations that would move the whole curve itself to the right or the left, change the expectation, change the price that everybody would be willing to pay in the market. If we look at what kind of moves us up and down the curve doesn't change, just we would move up and down the curve. We take a look at two of those. First off would be the income effect. That's a change in the quantity demanded due to either a change in the price or what that consumer can afford. If we use our classroom example and we talk about we have 30 students in there, what if one student gets a raise? They get a 50-cent per hour raise. That one student now has a little bit more money. They would be able to purchase a little bit more of this good. They may also be able to purchase more of a different good, and that kind of clues us into substitution effect. Maybe our product is bologna. And if our product is bologna and all of a sudden, Joe Smith gets an extra $1 an hour raise, Joe Smith can now maybe afford to buy roast beef as their sandwich option rather than buying bologna. So in turn, substitution effect may say, well, now that you have a little bit more money, that's going to kind of move us up and down the curve. Maybe you'll buy a little bit, you'll buy more roast beef and buy a little bit less in the bologna. Okay, that could push you up and down the particular curve. If you look at something that would change the whole curve, move the whole curve to the right or to the left, represented this way, the whole curve comes out over here, meaning everybody in the market would be willing to pay more at each and every unit. So if we were willing to buy, 36 units at 50 cents per, we're now willing to buy those same 36 units, but if the price goes up to $1.50. Okay, what will be some examples that would push that curve out to the right? Or, what would make the curve move into the left, where consumers want less at every price in the market? As we take a look at our determinants of demand, it'll help us answer that question. When we take a look here at determinants of demand, first one would be a change in the buyer's taste. If you think of a product that you thought was just, awesome back when you were in middle school, and you look at it now and say, well, it's not necessarily all that. Maybe it's a product that's gone out of style. You look at Pokemon cards, things like that. Now, there's still some out there, and some people will still use them, but Pokemon cards in general are not as popular as they once were. Or you look at CD players, okay, with the evolution of MP3s or smartphones where you can play your music on your smartphone. Not a lot of people necessarily need a compact disc player anymore. Doesn't mean they're not sold, doesn't mean they're not a quality product, but you don't necessarily have as many people willing to buy those products at every price in the market. You look at change in the number of buyers. We use a discussion back when the baby boom generation was around. One of the things that were out there were diaper services. They didn't necessarily have disposable diapers. They had cloth diapers, and it's what you wrap your son or daughter up in is a cloth diaper. And when they did their business, then you turn around and undo the cloth diaper, kind of put the stuff in the garbage, and then throw the rest of them in a can. You'd have a service that would show up and pick up those cloth diapers and take them and wash them in hot water or bleach them or whatever. Well, if you think as the baby boom generation happened, you can see the curve for, say, cloth diapers pushing its way out to the right. Everybody is willing to buy this product even though the price may go up. Okay, if you look at from an overly simple point of view, pushing the curve out to the right is more of a good thing. That means consumers have more money and or they are willing to buy more of that product at every price in the market. You look at the curve getting pushed in as maybe a bad or a not so good thing. Okay, a product that was over here at one point in time now is out of style, out of touch, not as efficient, whatever the case may be, and consumers are not going to want to purchase that for the same price. We look at another example, change in income. Again, not just one in particular person. If we talked about change in demand, income effect, one person, one individual, maybe getting a 50 cent or $1 an hour raise, or you look at slight change in the price per gallon of gasoline, that'll push a little bit. It's not going to change the whole curve. If you look at, say, minimum wage law, minimum wage right now in 2014 is in that $7.25, $7.50, $7.75 an hour range. There's been talk of pushing minimum wage up to $12, $13, $14 an hour. Okay, now there's some net result of that change that necessarily wouldn't be positive, but you could see some products having that whole curve getting pushed out to the right because everybody would in turn have more money. Or flip that idea around and say there's a cut in income taxes. If the federal and state income tax rate was cut in half, and you would have to pay half as much in taxes. Roughly, we pay about 30 cents on the dollar in taxes. What if you only had to pay about 15 cents on the dollar in all of your taxes? Social Security, Medicare, federal, state income tax. Okay, that curve could get pushed out to the right because in theory, every consumer has more money. And if every consumer has more money, kind of the marginal benefit, marginal cost, okay, you can now afford to buy more because your income is more. That scarce resource of capital or money, you have more of it just like everybody does. So some of those curves would get pushed out to the right. Flip that around, you have a tax increase or something like that, you would have that curve getting pushed in to the left because everybody would be able to afford less. You can look at our last two, change in consumer expectations. To me, that one is similar to change in buyer taste. That's talking about, is a product popular? Is a product something that people need and or want and is going to be used? And that, again, could push the curve out to the right or pull it into the left. Again, in general, very general, pushing it out to the right is more of a positive thing. Pulling it into the left, maybe not as much of a positive thing. And last one here, we'd have change in the price of related goods. So similar to substitute, but if a particular good changes its price, you're able to now either afford a lot more of one or afford a lot less of one. And that kind of ties into our elasticity conversation in part 3.